please when. Okay, let me know please when the time it's becoming to the end.
Yes.
Here, we are going to present as our team, me, Flavia, Hamlet, Luis, Maggie, and Sebastian have made this presentation. This is a short presentation. Here I share with you the agenda, previous introduction of the gold market. And the second point is going to be the definition, geographic extent, product dimensions and nature, supply and demand, market structure. Then we are going to analyze the portfolio forces, and then we close with the conclusion. And here, just a brief introduction. The gold market is mainly divided between over-the-counter OTC markets and exchanges. OTC markets include centers like London, Zurich. We have a graphic, and then we are going to show it better later. Then which operates through bullion banks and are known for their large trading volumes. These markets allow direct transactions between buyers and sellers without the intermediation of a formal exchange, facilitating the efficient negotiation of large quantities of gold. Additionally, metal exchange such as London Metal Exchange and Shanghai Gold Exchange provides regulated platforms for gold trading, ensuring transparency and stability in transactions. In terms of trading volumes, OTC markets handle the majority of daily gold trades, with the significant average compared with to exchanges. Trades on exchanges, although smaller in volume than OTC, also play a crucial role by offering standardized and regulated structures that attract different types of investors. I'm going to advance. This we can see in this graphic how it's the concentration of the market globally when it's the transactions in London, Zurich, that we can see the total volume that we have here in the graphic below. I'm sorry if you don't see my cursor. It's 274 tons total volume produced. And we're going to confirm the information after with the analysis of the supply and demand. The structure of the gold market, as we mentioned before, it's divided in trading of bullion in OTC markets and metal exchanges. The average annual supply over the last 10 years was of 4,653 tons, with 70% coming from mines and 25% from recycled gold. Annual demand is mainly distributed across jewelry, 52%, bars and coins, 26%, technology 8%, and financial products like ETFs 2%. Gold products go through manufacturing, distribution, and user process, with parts of recycled gold returning to the cycle through scrap dealers. Additionally, central banks and sovereign funds also participate significantly in gold storage. Okay. Then we have dimensions and nature of the market. The gold market is characterized by its homogeneous nature, given that gold is a standardized commodity with uniform physical qualities. Gold trade in financial and physical markets has specific purity grades, such as 99.5% for standard bullion, ensuring that each unit of gold is interchangeable with another of the same weight and purity. This homogeneity facilitates its global trade, as a gold of certain purity holds the same value regardless of its origin. However, there are some variations in gold products, such as jewelry, collectible coins, and bars of different sizes, but these products are more differentiated by their design, history, or size rather than their fundamental characteristics of raw material. At this right side, we have how it behaves regarding the the demand on jewelry, bars, and coins that we have spoken before, and just a graphic that summarizes all that I have mentioned on the previous slides, and what comes from mined and what comes from recycled incomes or suppliers here at the center. And then we have a structure of exploration, as all the mining structures: exploration, production, refining, and bullion trade that we have mentioned that is occurring on London and Zurich. Here we have just like a deep dive on a graphic explaining the supply a little bit more in details. Gold supply primarily comes from mining, recycling, and central banks that we have mentioned before. Mining production can fluctuate based on the factors like exploration success, production costs, and government policies, probably also in considering environmental issues that we have all here on the mining sectors around the globe. Recycled gold, mainly from old jewelry and electronics, also contributes to the supply. Central banks can impact supply through buying or selling gold reserves. Here we have the graphic that on the, I would say, violet, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the color. Violet color, we have the mine productions values. And on the green, dark green, we have the recycled gold. And the line that's gold, a little bit gold a ton, it's the price variations. And then we can see here, then in 2012, it started going down until 2015. Then we have a little rate of recovery until 2019. Then we have the COVID pandemic. The prices goes up during this the change of the 29 to 20, and then stabilized during the pandemic and start to recover on 2022 for obviously higher levels than it was on the previous decade, on 2012. So we can see that the prices is going up on the gold market. Here the same analysis for demand, considering the gold demand is driven by jewelry we have mentioned before. Investment include ETFs and bar coins, technology for electronics industry, and central bank purchases. Investor demand for gold can increase during the times of economic uncertainty as a hedge against inflation. Jewelry demand is influenced by cultural trends and economic conditions, of course, because jewelry is a special market as diamonds, I think. The use of gold in electronics and other industries is also an important factor in the demand. Fluctuations in supply and demand, along with other economic factors, can impact the price of the gold. And here we have a graphic that splits jewelry fabrication, technology, investments, and central banks. And obviously here we can see there was previously mentioned before that jewelry fabrication is the most demand that we have for the market, gold market. Here we have a brief analysis of the HHI on the main gold production countries in the world. We have split it on the production by country. It's China the first on production of gold, and Russia, Federation, Australia, Canada, United States at the top 5. Let me go through the next slide. HHI for gold is likely below 1,500, which indicates a competitive market. As the top of producers do not dominate the market to extend, seen in more concentrated sectors like rare earths, elements, or niobium, which have HHI scores much higher than the gold market. Then we have the numbers. Just mention healthy competition is good for any market, but it's particularly important when it comes to the raw materials that underlie the global economy. The HHI, what we are seeing here in the screen, it's the Herd Feindahl-Richmond Index. It's a commonly accepted measurement of market concentration, and in this case, it shows which mineral sectors have healthy competition between countries, as well as the sectors that are more monopolistic. Here we have also a scale to understand how works the HHI. So if it's below 1,100 is a competitive market, and the high levels are in another scale. We have also here, just for comparison, natural gas and petroleum HHI scores that we can have an idea. And here at the center, the tables that mentions in ounces and tons of gold production by company. I'm sorry, I haven't mentioned before. The company, the way I analyzing is the Newmont Corporation. I think we have mentioned with you, Rod, yesterday. And just to mention this, I should have mentioned it before, but we have the producers by company. So the company that I have chosen to analyze, Newmont Corporation, and it's the first one producer last year. Here's the table considering ounces, and this is considering tons. And here we go to the center of the analysis. That's is how we're going to explain or mention, I would say, how we could understand, considering all the market analysis for gold, how it's driven the 5 Porter forces. The first one here, I'm sorry. Let's check. The first is Porter forces, rivalry between existing competitors. As I have mentioned before, we are analyzing Newmont as our company to be studied here. What have we analyzed for this specific driven force, that high threat, considering scale of productivity, capacity, large or small mining could be competitors, number of competitors in the gold market, homogeneous product. For example, strategic acquisitions. Newmont has used acquisitions such as purchase of Gold Corp in 29 to strengthen its position as a leader in the gold industry, intensifying rivalry with other major producers such as Barrick Gold. Then we have the short term and long term as a threat. I'm not going to explain all of it, but I'm going to concentrate on this topic as the opportunity that we have seen, considering this driving force. At this condition that we have for Newmont, the opportunity to the companies to strengthening barriers to entry and developing of community and regulatory relations. Okay. The second Porter force is threat of new entrants. We analyze it and we consider this could be a low threat. Significant barriers such as high infrastructure investment costs, stringent environment regulations, and the need for the access to high quality mineral resources. We have also understood the low threat. This is a low threat considering both short-term and long-term. At the final end of the discussion, opportunity could be for Newmont, could be diversification of supply resources and investment in internal capabilities. The third Porter force is bargaining power of suppliers. In our analysis, this could be a moderated or medium threat. Companies negotiate with suppliers of mining equipment, services, and supplies, leveraging their size and position in the industry to obtain better terms and prices. However, the dependence on specialized equipment and services can affect their bargaining power in certain respects. I think this opportunity, as we have discussed with the team, opportunity for this force would be segmentation and customization, and developing long-term relationship with strategic suppliers that support the value chain for the Newmont operations. The fourth Porter force will be bargaining powers of buyers. We consider this as a low threat. Gold is mainly sold on global markets, where prices are determined by worldwide supplies and demand. Buyers could be investors, jewelry industry, central banks have limited influence on gold prices, which follow the law of the single price in international markets.
You have about 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Rod. I think we can make it. It's just I think 70% of the presentation already. For this driving force, we consider this as an opportunity for innovation in products and services, educate the market about the vital importance of gold in society. The last one, threat of substitute products. We consider this as a low threat, although gold has industrial applications and is an investment asset, it has no direct substitutes until today in terms of its properties as a store of value and use in jewelry. Of course, this is the main demand. This reduces the threat of direct substitute products, although alternatives such as other precious materials could be on the line of it. Opportunity for this threat could be differentiation and added value as a company, as Newmont could be, not just on the product line, but on the company itself, and geographic and market expansion. And then we can move to the conclusions that we have all analyzed here. This is like a overall resume of what we have previously explained before. So in our understanding, the conclusion is that the structure of the market is based on a duality between OTC market and regulated exchange that could offer a flexibility and diversity in trading options for global investors. The annual supply of gold mine comes from mines, which with a significant portion of recycling, as we have explained before, and demand is diversified among jewelry, bars and coins, technology, and financial products. The standardized nature of gold with specific purity grades ensure the interchangeability and facilitates the global trade in general, although there are variations in specific products differentiated by additional aspects such as size and design. The combination of a diversified market structure and the homogeneity of the product allows for flexible and diverse participation in gold trade and investment worldwide. The HHI gold, it's likely below the 1,500, which indicates a competitive market as the top producers do not dominate the market to the extent seen in more concentrated sectors like rare earths and elements of niobium. And in conclusion, several factors can contribute to the nature of the gold market: geographic dispersion, diverse producers, and economic and political factors. The global gold market is highly competitive, influenced by various forces according to the five forces that we have seen before. High rivalry exists among mining companies, investors, and central banks driven by price fluctuations. As we have seen during a decade of 2012 to 22, the prices has very fluctuations and restarted recovered on 22 after the COVID most damage had damaged all the economic sectors around the globe. Entry barriers are high due to the substantial capital, advanced technology, and strict regulations, reducing new entrants' threat. Buyers, including central banks and investors, have moderate negotiation power, considered constrained by gold's safe haven demand. The threat of substitutes is low to moderate, with a few direct alternatives like silver, platinum, and cryptocurrencies. Overall, these forces shape a robust and competitive global market for gold. And that's it. So.
All right. Thank you very much, Flavia.
Okay.
And to the other members of the team, what questions or comments do others have? Well, I might start then, but others should feel free to join in. I noticed that you did not actually calculate an HHI. Is that because you did not have the market shares for all producing companies? And I make that statement because one could approximate an HHI just with the top 10. So could you go back to the slide, please, that has the market shares there for the companies. So, and I realize it depends a little bit on whether you do it in tons or ounces. I'm not quite sure why the market shares differ, but ignore that. But for example, looking at the table on the left, one could square 18 times 18 plus 13.5 and so on would give one a number. It would not be all producers, and theoretically an HHI should include the market shares of all producers. But in most cases, after you get below the top 10 producers, market shares are low. So let's just imagine or assume that number 11 is 1%, number 12 is 1%, and so on. Well, squaring 1 adds 1 point to the HHI score. Now, I agree with you. I think that this is probably less than 1,500, but one could calculate an approximate HHI. The other comment I would make about HHI is that the method is, you discussed both country market shares on the previous slide and company market shares. In terms of understanding the market structure, what we really want are the market shares of the entities that control and make decisions about production and investment. And I think in most cases that will be companies rather than countries. Now, I think the country information is important in understanding the structure of the market, but in terms of HHI calculations, I would suggest emphasizing company market shares rather than countries. Okay, well, that was more of a comment than a question. Are there questions from others? Everyone is being very quiet. I hope you did not have an agreement among you that no one would ask any questions. It would be easy.
I don't think, Rod. I don't think I don't have it. So.
Okay, well, then I have a second observation, and that relates to the threat of substitution. Your analysis and your conclusion was a low threat. I don't strongly disagree, although I would observe that in terms of gold's use as an investment, in theory, any other investment, in English we would say vehicle. I don't know whether vehiculo is the right word in Spanish, but there are other ways to make investments. One can purchase shares of stock in companies. One can invest in bonds. One can invest in currencies. One can invest in real estate. And so in my mind, gold is really not special. but I have to tell you, in the minds of many people, gold is special, and probably that's more important for the market than my individual opinion.
Okay.
Yes, I see we have a hand raised, Sebastian.
Flavia, si me puedes traducir ahí más o menos, quiero dar como un comentario, por favor.
Por supuesto. Dale, Sebastián.
Que ahí la percepción de que el oro es más valioso para una u otras personas igual es algo cultural. En un momento el oro fue utilizado como reserva económica de los países y en un otro lado, o sea, un punto de la historia empezó a utilizarse monedas, o sea, utilizaron como monedas como el dólar como económicas que estaban como el top, que o sea, no manipulaban, pero sino que dan estabilidad económica. Pero aún así hay crisis actualmente y la gente se refugia en el oro porque culturalmente uno piensa que el oro es el refugio. Entonces se mantiene esa apreciación del oro, pero es algo como cultural histórico de la humanidad.
Ujú,
Allá con lo que decía, el último que decía Rod.
ujú. Ok. ¿Puedo traducir?
Sí, porfa.
Rod, what was adding Sebastian, he's from my group, and he was mentioned that the perception of the gold historically is like funds, I would say, for reserves. That is a cultural perception that gold is attributed to this. And I also understand of all that we have studied in history at the, I don't know, the school and university, that the gold is finally a metal that have always been used for trades with the coins at the first beginning. Then we have the money itself in paper, and then the perception of the gold. It's very cultural because it's like funds for reserves, and I think if I'm not wrong, but please correct me if the reserves of a country. I'm from Brazil, and I remember that it was used to mention that the reserves of a country could be measured in gold also. So not just in paper itself, but in gold. I don't know the name of this. Then you have a condition like of a structure the country with their reserves in gold. But I understood your point that obviously this kind of substitute would be not on the gold itself, but as a product, gold for jewelry and technology applications, but instead for the investors. This would be a substitute. Is that correct?
Yes, that was my point.
Okay.
Anyway, we are now at 30 minutes, and I know we could continue on and discuss each of the markets for a long time, but in the interest of managing time, let me thank you very much for your presentation and analysis. And let me invite the molybdenum group to take the stage, so to speak. Now, while the molybdenum group is getting organized, we need to determine what is the best way for me to receive copies of your PowerPoint slides. I am taking notes during your presentations, but when as part of my grading or assigning marks to the group work, I would like to have the PowerPoint slide decks themselves. Is it better for you to email them to me, or perhaps they should be uploaded to uCursos?
We're doing that already. We're uploading the presentations to courses.
Okay, very good. Then,
Yeah.
then that answers my question, and I will work with Diego and Veronica to gain access myself to uCursos.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. Well, who is molybdenum? Molybdenum group.
Chicos, el grupo número 2,
Número 5.
5.
Hi, Mr. Roth.
Yes. There we go.
Yeah. Okay, we are the. Good morning, everyone. My name is David, and we are the group 5 for molybdenum, and my team is composed by Roderick, Quetzal, and we are going to start with the presentation. Let me. One moment, please.
¿Comparto la presentación, David?
¿La tienes tú?
Sí.
Ok. Ya, ok, dale, Rodri, empieza entonces.
¿Me avisan si se ve?
Sí, ponlo en modo presentación.
Ok.
Yes, I can see your presentation.
It's okay.
Yes.
Start, David.
Ya presenté ya, dale, sigue con lo...
Ok. One moment, please. The first slide is the market definition. Market size of the molybdenum size was valued at 4.4 billion in 2022. It's projected to reach 6.8 billion by 2031, growing a compound annual rate of 4% during forecast period 2023 and 2031. The source is Business Research Insight. In our study case, the market is secondary production of molybdenum, and specific, the company is Codelco. The market share of molybdenum in the world and Chile, the principal company of the market share in the world are Freeport McMoran, Codelco Tech Resource, Antofagasta PLC, Southern Copper, Yanqi Copper Corporation, and Yundichen Molybdenum Corporation Limited, China Molybdenum Co. Limited, and Limited. In the graph, we show the market share of Chile because the case study is Codelco. And the market share Chile concentrate of molybdenum is Codelco with 45%, and Antofagasta PLC with 16%, Coyahuasi 15%, Anglo American 6%, and other companies 18%. The principal application of the molybdenum are stainless steel, energy, and chemical industry. Of its application, it greatest relationships to demand is with the production of stainless steel and the oil market. In the graphic, you can see price variation of the stainless steel with the molybdenum. It's very, very same. But the new drivers are the electronic, optical, and aerospace market are entered in the application of the molybdenum. First force, low rivalry between competitors. There is low rivalry with competition, mainly due to cost efficient. Low cost production is the very important variable because this company the secondary production are take of price. By being efficient in production coupled with the high molybdenum prices, there are greater molybdenum resource. And the second force, height, threat of entry. The entry barrier at the investment level is considered high due to amount of investment and equipment, capital, and technology. For example, Codelco has made $1 million investment, $4,000 million for Molib, a subsidiary of Codelco, and this is a process for roasted for molybdenum. On the other hand, the extraction of the molybdenum as a byproduct, the copper, allow Codelco to take advantage of the economies of the scale and take advantage of operational synergies, becoming a competitive advantage and an important operation synergies. Sorry, becoming a competitive advantage and important obstacle for new competitors that are not in the commodity and secondary sector. Since in this singular case, it's considered a medium low barrier. Furthermore, it's detected that obtaining exploitation and environmental permits in the mine reserve worldwide, China, Chile, USA, Peru, implies a medium degree of difficulty, which makes it a long-term entry, also making it difficult for new rebels to enter. It's important to emphasize that depending on the investor perspective regarding the future price, the market becomes more or less interesting. David.
La siguiente, la cuarta me toca, Rodri.
Okay, third force, medium height, threat of substitution. Although molybdenum has a special characteristic such as anti-corrosion, steel hardening capacity in the temperature resistant. The sixth highest in melting point of the element. This is the temperature for the melting point. There are substitutes for molybdenum, such as the tungsten, vanadium, titanium, and nickel in the some application due to decision of the final product in the which it's used. Items such as physical characteristics, lower weight, great resistance, or cost are decisive when replacing molybdenum. On the other hand, as with other commodities, the entry of synthetic products or those that have not yet been discovered must be considered, which can significantly change this force.
Okay, for the fourth force, bargaining power of customers. Okay, we are considering that is low. There is no differentiation of the molybdenum by product, so the company's bargaining power is higher than the customer. That means that molybdenum that Codelco produces is a byproduct of the copper concentrate, so there is no difference in quality. In addition, molybdenum is considered one of the best metals to make metal alloys due to its physical properties that make steels more resistant. Therefore, its reason has few substitutes. Also, in recent years, Codelco has remained in the top 3 companies that produce most molybdenum. Codelco, in fact, Codelco has produced more than 20,000 tons of molybdenum in 2021, only behind Freeport and Southern Copper, which means that in the molybdenum market, Codelco has a significant representation of clients, consequently greater negotiation power, bargaining power, sorry. The distribution of buyers by country continues to be distributed by China's growth. It has not yet reached the speed of, for example, that of the iron industry. And next slide, Roderick. Okay. Fifth force, bargaining power of suppliers. We are considering that it is low. There are input supplier options in the flocculants market. So the company's bargaining power is higher than the supplier because the copper-related business has the infrastructure, acquisition process, and scales to make a competitive market. That is the ability of alternatives of key inputs for the production and processing of molybdenum allows the company to have supply options which favor its negotiation. Next slide, Roderick. Okay, price taker or price searchers. Well, this graphic, in summary, we want to say that in the last years, the demand has been more than supply. So with that that has put in upgrade pressure on prices. It could be attractive for secondary producers who have molybdenum as a byproduct. As they are price taker, it is very positive news to enter the market or improve it. Next slide, Roderick. Okay, implication for strategy. Molybdenum being a copper byproduct, its strategy is associated with copper mining with a perspective for rising prices. Due to greater demand, it is possible that new copper mining projects will invest in the recovery of molybdenum. That is associated with the copper market, and the entry decision is mainly given by the molybdenum grade. As far as we know, we need 120 ppms to do a new plan for molybdenum. The decision to produce molybdenum is associated with molybdenum grade and the investment required for this process, as well as the behavior of suppliers and demand for prices determination. That is the construction of a plant, and this is to not be a price taker like Codelco did. That is it for our presentation.
All right, thank you very much. what questions or comments do others have? Well, I have a couple of questions or comments. Think about the 5 Porter forces. The key, or what the Porter method emphasizes, is evaluating threats to profitability or vulnerabilities to profits. I sometimes think of it as what would keep the senior executives awake at night worrying about in terms of the profitability, in this case, of molybdenum. So of the 5 Porter forces, which is or are the most important or the biggest worries for the molybdenum executives at Codelco? Do they worry about existing rivals? Do they worry about entry? Do they worry about customers, input suppliers, or substitutes?
Si lo compartes, o sea, si puedes como traducir un poco.
No, lo que ha preguntado Roderick es ¿cuál de las 5 fuerzas es lo que preocupa o lo que debería tomar más énfasis Codelco, ¿no? Para tener más beneficios en nuestra precesión? ¿Cuál de las 5 es la más importante?
Bueno, la que tenemos definida como más alta o media alta está la entrada de nuevos actores.
Ajá. Eso es lo que explicaste. ¿Podrías de repente...?
Entendiendo que como el precio va al alza y hay nuevos proyectos, si el precio es alto, se va a empezar a rentabilizar la producción de molibdeno a menores leyes. Y eso va a ir aterrizando el precio.
Ok. Mr. Roderick.
O sea, es lo que yo creo. Y lo que definimos ahí en nuestra barrera.
Okay. Mr. Roderick, we think that the force that is more important for Codelco to see and is the second force to the entry for new competitors, because maybe that means that the price of the molybdenum fall in the future due to more production of molybdenum for competitors that maybe we will have.
I think I agree with you.
Okay.
Perhaps for a slightly different reason, and that is, as copper production increases, there will be more copper mining, which means there'll be more available molybdenum, potentially available as a byproduct. And so, as you correctly have identified, understanding molybdenum markets and molybdenum availability depends also on understanding what's happening with copper.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, one point that people have told me is slightly different, in that if solvent extraction and electrowinning become relatively more important than smelting and refining, that reduces the availability of molybdenum because solvent extraction and electrowinning as a process does not permit the recovery of byproducts. Whereas in the current environment, the smelting and refining processing route is the one that permits or the concentrate smelting and refining process permits the recovery of byproducts from copper production. Do we have questions or comments about molybdenum?
¿Algo que decir, Rodri, para poder traducirlo si no?
Algo entendí.
No, si hay algún comentario más con respecto al trabajo.
No.
¿Alguna feedback, algo?
I have one other comment,
Ya.
and that is about the use of language, not your use of language, but why it is here's another example of the same words meaning different things in different circumstances. So yesterday, I said, for my purposes, primary production is from the mine. Secondary production is via recycling. But in the molybdenum industry, people use those words differently. Primary means the main product, copper, and secondary means the byproduct, in this case, molybdenum. It's not that the molybdenum sector is wrong, it's just they use the words primary and secondary somewhat differently than the way I have used them and the way some other people use the same words.
Okay.
I don't know how that, whether that is true in Spanish or not.
It's difficult sometimes.
Yes, Flavia, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, I agree with you, Rod. We have seen this consideration of primary, secondary markets for copper and molybdenum. Yes, this is the same, I would say, in Chile.
So anyway, just be aware that in many circumstances, different people use the same words differently. And it sometimes, in my experience, leads to confusion. All right, well, do we have any more questions or comments for the molybdenum group?
No sé, Flavia, ¿tú me puedes ayudar a traducir más rápido?
Sí, claro, ningún problema.
Rod, pero el molibdeno también depende mucho del exceso de producción de las minas de cobre, y si el uso del molibdeno está bajo por distintas razones, eso también es una preocupación de alguna manera para las empresas que producen cobre, porque baja el precio del molibdeno, que es un crédito. No sé si se entendió, Flavia.
Sí, creo que sí, voy a tratar de traducir. What Jose is saying, Rod, is that since molybdenum is associated with the copper production, and when the price of molybdenum is lower, so it can sometimes interfere on the whole production of the both, I would say. So this is what he's trying to highlight and to understand a little bit.
Yes, and I have heard that also from others. And I think in those circumstances, we may have a situation where copper and molybdenum are co-products rather than molybdenum being a byproduct. And by co-product, I mean that the prices of both materials, both co-products, in this case, copper and molybdenum, influence the mine planning and the operation at the mine in terms of how much ore to produce from which sections of the mineral deposit and so on. Whereas, to put that into contrast, if we think about tellurium, I don't think it is ever the case, or rhenium, I don't think it is ever the case that a change in the price of tellurium or rhenium influences the mine operating decision. A change in the price of tellurium or rhenium only influences whether or not to recover the rhenium or the tellurium as really a very minor byproduct. Whereas molybdenum is often a little different. It's more important in many cases than the tellurium or rhenium, for example. Did that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, well, we have been going for about an hour. I suggest we take a short break and come back at 15 minutes past the hour. And next up is the copper group. So if the copper group in particular would be ready to go at 15 minutes past the hour. All right. Thank you
Yeah.
very much to the first two groups. And I look forward to the other groups. Let me say just one final thing before we break. These presentations are an important part of the course from my perspective, not just because it allows you the chance to show the results of your individual analyses, but it gives all of us, the entire class, more facts and figures and kind of real information about 6 different markets. As you will have noticed, most of my slides in my lecture is more concepts. And so it's important to have facts and figures and information along with the concepts, and together with the concepts and the information, I hope create a more complete picture of the markets. Anyway, thank you. See you at 15 minutes past the hour.
The carbon, based on the use of electrical energy, copper has been classified as a critical mineral. The next one, please. We have demand for traditional copper use, such as power networks and construction, as illustrated in the graph on the left, to which is added a growing demand for electromobility, mobile technologies, and renewable energies, as shown in the graph in the middle. This graph shows the consumption of copper projected to 2050. Claro, the projected consumption reached 40 million tons of fine copper. At this point, we must clarify that the information and graph found refers in aggregate form to fine copper, which include copper concentrate and cathode. Therefore, they were only used for qualitative analysis. In contrast, the graph on the right shows that by 2026, a maximum of 25.7 million of tons will be reached for the base case study that consider current capacities, new projects, ramp-ups, and expansion. However, from 2027, a deficit of the base case begins, which make it necessary to enter new source of production, according to Wood Mackenzie. The next one, please. And finally, we speak about the internal rivalry. No. Before any consideration with the price. Regarding supply, finally, the price projection shown in the graph below. Sorry. Stand out. For the years 2025, 2026, a peak in the price of copper is expected since a deficit in supply is expected. Finally, the Hirschman index was calculated for two cases. The first one, HHA1, which consider copper concentrate producer located in Chile. The case 2, which consider producers from 9 countries, HHA2, and the last index is a information found for the concentrate market. In all three cases, the same conclusion is reached. The market for copper concentrate is low concentration and highly competitive. Now, this is my part.
Okay, good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be talking about copper market being a price taker, since as Vladimir also mentioned, there are several companies in the supply sector and also in the demand, from the demand side. So it is quite competitive, and we have identified some special characteristics to conclude that copper is a price taker market. First of all, as Vladimir already mentioned, it's standardization. That even though copper concentrate is different in mineral characteristics from mine to mine, given arsenic, chlorine, or other penalties, or other minerals as ore, gold, silver. In general, these are already taken into account for commercialization. So there's those minerals are payable or included as penalties. But in general, it's the same concentrate physically. So the logistics and the trading, it's basically standardized. And it's not the most standardized, but still we consider it's good enough for trading purposes. As well, we see that the copper price is traded in international markets, in exchanges such as LME or COMEX or Shanghai Future Exchange, for example. So the price of copper is listed there for everyone to see, and therefore it moves due to supply and demand forces. Also, in the specific case of copper concentrate, we take into account the treatment charge and the refining charge, that even though they are negotiated over the counter or individually, it is this set a benchmark for the whole industry as a reference and for private contracts. So that's also why we consider it aligns more with the price taker view. Finally, there are, as we have mentioned, there are many producers around the world that gives the structure where no specific producer can influence the price directly, and that's basically it. Thanks. Next slide, please. So we analyzing the threat of entry. We consider it to be really high because now more than ever there's a very high capital requirements to develop a mine. First, starting for exploration and the construction, there's a lot of capital needed to build a new mine. And second of all, there's it's very difficult to find a quality deposit, since all major deposits have been already identified and taken. So we have to take into account that new deposits require a lot of investment in exploration. Also, recently regulatory and environmental laws and barriers are very important, given how the world is focused on sustainability. So there's a lot of laws and authorizations from each government that increase the complexity of developing a mine. For your information, here in Peru, you need it takes between 10 and 15 years to develop a mine, only because of the permissions. Next point will be political and social factors that also we have seen that recently the social unrest in Peru or in Panama and other in specific countries generate disruption to the operations. So it's complicated to estimate the line of the mine or the profitability of a mine if you don't have certainty about how long this mine will operate. And last but not least, the workforce is highly technical, so you need to hire a lot of experienced people in the mining sector to be able to develop a mine. That's why we conclude the threat of entry is high. Thanks.
The next street that we are going to be talking about is the street of substitution, that we consider this as a low, or we classify this as a low street. And the why, because we classify this like that, is because there are some substitute products, like in the aluminum, for example, that has some applications in the electrical wiring sector, if I can say that, in the construction, heat exchanger, and others. However, the copper has some unique properties, like the high electrical and thermal conductivity, which are very desirable in the market. It has some corrosion resistance as well, and easy installation that make really desirable in the market. It has some antimicrobial properties as well that for the healthcare sector is very good and very desirable as well. So some characteristics that make the copper quite unique in the sector. There are some economical considerations as well that we have to consider on this, because for short term, some of the substitute can be term. The copper has some benefits benefit in terms of economical maintenance and comparing with aluminum, for example, and the installation which is lower can be lower because it has a market. There are other things related to this, and are the technological and industrial developments.
You have about 5 minutes.
Because there is a whole industry related to the copper, and bring a high competitiveness related to others, because some substitute.
It's just me. I have lost Lionel.
Lionel, I think several of us have lost you.
It's in this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regarding the bar.
Yeah. Oh, can you hear me now?
It's okay.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you now. You, for the last
Hello,
minute
can
or
you hear me?
two, you
Okay.
were cutting in and out.
Yep. Hello.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Oh, my apologies. I look like I lost internet.
Okay. Regarding the bargaining power of input suppliers for Antofagasta Mineral, it is medium to low because critical suppliers such as equipment, energy, water, and labor are highly specialized, with a fluctuation in the price of the raw materials. For example, if steel or fuel price rise, supplier maybe have more bargaining power. However, Antofagasta Mineral has access to supplier diversification that reduce dependence on single supplier and makes a purchase of large volumes, allowing it to negotiate better price. Additionally, as mitigant measures to avoid depends on supplier. Antofagasta Mineral present innovation in energy, negotiate long-term contract, and improvide competitiveness and capacity through investment.
Steven,
Can
I think we lost the slide deck.
no?
Yes.
Let me just back to that. Yeah, my apologies. I'm getting a problem with the internet. Can we see that?
Okay, Lionel, the next
Slides. Okay.
please.
Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, got it. So the bargaining power of buyers, we consider this as a medium risk, and there are many factors because of this. One of these is the copper is traded on major commodity exchanges like the London Metal Exchange, which is providing transparency and a framework of control, if I can say that, of the market, and what the companies are able to publish the resources that they have, and the market movement on the pricing and volume of buy and sells. So this is a very good thing because for the copper. There is a price sensitivity related to the fluctuation of the price, because it's affecting the production, the cost production. So if we got a really high price of copper, this is going to be probably reducing the volume of demand for the copper. However, the growth in demand and the growth of the price for copper is expected to be driven by the green energy sector, like the electric vehicles and this environmental carbon reduction agenda that is promoting this, as well as the use of copper for batteries and all the transition to the green energy sectors. There is other things that we are considering is high important is the volume of purchasing that a large industry can have. In let's say, or let's put China as a main buyer of the concentration of copper. So they really buy really high volume of this material. So things like that are giving power of buyers. However, because the transparency from the exchange and the cost associated to the how not easy is to try to get substitute of the copper because it's unique property, as we were talking before, is bargaining power of the buyers in this sense. So let's pass to the next slide.
Okay. Antofagasta Minerals' strategy is based on the purpose of developing mining for a better future, together with the four target group associated with the planet, society, organization, and people. And its 5 pillars that refer to safety and sustainability, competitiveness, people and culture, growth and innovation. Broadly speaking, this strategy allows this company to focus on cost leadership through the optimization of your operational and logistic process. This includes automation and energy efficiency technology, as well as the renegotiation of contract with suppliers to obtain better terms. Another point is differentiation through a focus on sustainability and corporate social responsibility, highlighting the production of green copper with less environmental impact. And finally, focus on a spec market segment that value the high quality and sustainability of copper, such as high-end electronic and automotive manufacturers. Another point to address are the action that Antofagasta Mineral has to defend itself from strong threats with our diversification of mining products in comparing the products of other minerals such as molybdenum, reducing dependence on copper. The second point is operational resilience, establishing strategic reserve of critical input and implementing contingency plans to face supply chain disrupt and fluctuation in metal price. And finally, staying proactive in compliance with environment and social regulation, avoiding penalty and improving corporative reputation.
In summary and overall evaluation of us is related to market definition. For copper concentrated, it's a global market with low differentiation and high degree of standardization. Demand is growing, and this is driven mainly by the global decarbonization process. Internal gravity, we consider that this as it's below the 1500, this indicates that it's a highly competitive market. In terms of the trees of entry, as we were mentioning before, we consider it's high. This is due to the substantial capital requirements and the bigger player in the area and very well established. The trio substitution we consider is low because the copper is still playing a crucial role in the development of and implementation of renewable energy technologies. In terms of the BP of input suppliers, we consider that Antofagasta Mineral has a medium to low bargaining power. This is due to the supplies and the size of the supplies, the volume of purchases as well. The BP of buyers we consider is medium because there are large industrial buyers that can buy big volumes. However, as the demand is expecting to continue growing because the green energy sector, this is balancing the buyer power. In terms of the price taker or price searcher, this is a standard. We consider this price taker due to the standardized nature, reliance on benchmark prices, and the presence of many producers that are creating a very competitive structure. In terms of the implications for strategy, Antofagasta Mineral strengthened its position in the market through the combination of cost leadership, differentiation, and strategy approach, as well as the innovation, which it was very highlighted in the previous slides. That's our presentation. Any
Thank you very
comments,
much.
questions?
Do we have any questions or comments? And I will start with one and keep this slide showing, please. Overall, I agree with most of your analysis. I do have a question about threat of entry, number 2. Your reasoning emphasizes high capital requirements, control of quality ore deposits by established players, strict regulatory and environmental rules or barriers, and so on. Those suggest to me that entry is difficult. And if entry is difficult, I think of that as being a low threat to Antofagasta's profitability. So,
yes, you're right. We have
or
inverted.
low or medium at least.
No, it will be
high.
low.
So,
We have confused with the. I mean, considering that the barriers are high, it's confusion with the concept. But yes, I agree. Considering threat of entry, it's low. And barriers to entry are high.
okay, thank you. I mean, and let me say, in my experience, there often sometimes is confusion about what the words high and low mean in the context of the Porter forces. And for me, the easiest way to think about it is threat to profitability. Is the threat to profitability high, medium, or low? Or even better in my mind, ask yourself the question that I think I asked one of the earlier groups: what keeps senior executives awake at night, and what worries them about the threats to their profitability? And anything that keeps them awake at night is probably high, or at least medium. Okay, do we have any other questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Francisco.
Simulation about the Chile and Peru, Latin America, what the possibility, one simulator possibility, join us the production copper in both countries. What about in the market and the impact in the market, in price? What about transportation, maybe cartel in both countries? Thank you.
Could I interrupt at that point? This is actually a topic that I want to talk about later today. So I suggest we just kind of keep that, hold your finger in the air. Remember, we will return to this later today. And if I forget, please remind me, because there are a couple of slides later in my slide deck that talk about this issue.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.
I have a question.
Yes.
It's about the smelter, because is about where is this street, or is a street or not, because we know that the smelter, or almost of a smelter, is in Chinese, and the business of the smell of copper is concentrated to Chinese, and this is a threat, or this is a vertical segregation. I don't know how they say, but I think that the policy about the smelter in the country, or in Chile, you need to compete with the Chinese in this material, or not?
Do we have a response from the copper team?
Yes, I can see that with around 65% of copper concentrate goes to China. They have developed very big capacity in terms of smelting. The problem right now is that the pace of growth of smelting is higher, or has been way higher than the growth of copper concentrate production. So there's an overcapacity right now. And that has not changed or diminished the appetite for other countries to build their own smelters. We see, for example, India, that is growing very big figures right now. They have built Adani, their smelter, their own smelter, because they know copper is critical for them. Also, Indonesia has built 2 smelters right now, because they to stop exporting concentrate and export cathode, because the idea is to own the cathode and own the copper that will be used later in other industries. So in that sense, it is very competitive market, and the threat will be in terms of geopolitical position.
If I might, I agree with all that you said. Let me focus on this slide and the Porter framework. The copper group took the perspective of a producer of concentrate, and so focused on the concentrate market rather than the market for refined copper. So ignoring the fact that Antofagasta produces both concentrate and refined metal, let's just focus on the concentrate. What is a smelter from the perspective of a producer of concentrate? Well, it could either be an input supplier, number 4, if Antofagasta retains ownership of the metal that the smelter and the refinery produces, or if there is a change in ownership and the smelting and refining complex owns the refined metal, then the smelter is a buyer. And so in terms of the Porter framework, from the perspective of concentrate markets, a smelter is either a supplier of inputs or a buyer, depending on the contractual relationship between the concentrate producer and the smelter. Now, the fact that there is, in effect, overcapacity in smelting and refining, that gives bargaining power to the producer of the concentrate. And so if there is oversupply of concentrate or oversupply of smelting capacity, I would expect to see lower treatment and refining charges than otherwise would occur, and that's advantageous to the producer of the concentrate. Now, if we're taking the perspective of someone thinking about building a smelter, overcapacity is a barrier to entry. Did that make sense? So in terms of this logic, this framework of analysis, from the perspective of a concentrate producer, a smelter is either an input supplier, number 4, or a buyer, number 5, depending on the contract, the nature of the contract between the two organizations. Anyway, as with the other commodities, we could go on and on and on, but I think we need to cut it off here. I need to cut it off so that we give nickel its appropriate time. So let me thank the copper group and invite the nickel group to present their analysis of nickel.
Okay, perfect. Excuse me. Hello?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. And this group, number 3, talking about the mineral market nickel. And we are Karin, Rodrigo, Francisco, y Fei-Ching. And market definition, nickel is a transition metal used mainly in stainless steel and superalloys and batteries and coins and catalysts. And the most important mineral is the pendolandite and iron nickel sulfide. Global demand for nickel is increasing by 9.2%, and the supply is expected to climb by 5.8% in 2024. Price nickel in this moment, the last 30 days, evolution to $8 in the London Metal Exchange. But the lower global nickel price have contributed some operating having a loss about, for example, in BHP, $300 million. Geography, the nickel market is a global and regional. For example, in Western Australia, with production and consumers across various regions, such as Asia Pacific, mostly, especially China and Indonesia. And Indonesia is the world's largest nickel producer with 20% of the global total. The next one, in the focus in the market nickel West BHP company. Company BHP has a wide portfolio mining, what in iron ore and copper, and in addition supplies high quality nickel to world market for use in electric vehicles batteries. For example, Toyota light vehicle. And Nickel West is the world leading nickel supplier to the battery metals market, but has recorded negative cash flow every year during this period. And the most important place in Western Australia is in Kalgoorlie and Kalpalda, when smelter, refine, and concentrate plant and process the nickel. And also, and in addition, third parties such as Glencore and AGO Limited, which are suppliers to BHP. Nature of products is a differentiated product. What about, for example, metal, powder, concentrate, cathode, and moreover, the sulfate, nickel is an essential ingredient in the lithium iron batteries that drive electric car. Rodrigo.
Okay, continue with the analysis with the Porter 5 pores. The internal rivalry, the internal competition is high for the nickel commodity because due to the presence of the several large global producers such as Norilsk Nickel, Vale, Glencore, and Jinchuan Group. The internal competition is high because this competitor fight for market share by improving production efficiency, investing in principally in new technologies. The key factor about the internal rivalry is large established producer. Companies such as Norilsk Nickel and Vale dominate a large part of the market. So that is the reason that the intensifying the competition between BHP. The second key factor is innovation and technologies. Competitor invests significantly in new technologies to improve the efficiency and reduce their cost. And the finally key factor is the production capacity and supply of nickel can influence rivalry, especially in period of overcapacity or deficit. Next slide, please, Francisco. So the next one, Porter force is threat of entry. The threat of new entries into the nickel market is low because there are high barriers to entry. High barriers like a high capital cost. A new entrant need to have advanced technologies, and the environment regulation is very stringent. The key factor, high capital cost. If you want to start a nickel mining operation, it's necessary to invest a lot of money in infrastructure and technology. The environment regulation are strict regulation can make it difficult for a new competitor to enter. Finally, economic of scale. Established producer can produce at lower costs per unit, making it difficult for a new competitor to enter. Next slide, please.
Okay, another force is threat of substitution. The threat of substitute product is medium, although alternative materials such as aluminum and plastic exist. Nickel has a unique properties such as corrosion resistance and durability that make it difficult to replace in certain applications. Key factors, alternative materials, aluminum and plastic can replace nickel in some applications, but they do not offer the same properties in terms of strength and durability. Technological innovation of the development of new materials may increase the threat of substitute in the future, and the switching cost, the cost associated with switching to substitute materials can be high, limiting the threat of substitution. Next, please, Francisco. Bargaining power on input suppliers. The bargaining power of suppliers in the nickel market is medium. Suppliers of technology and equipment for nickel mining have some influence, but the supply of nickel is geographically diversified, limit the power of suppliers. If one supplier tries to raise price or change condition, mining company can switch to other suppliers relatively easily. Among the main suppliers are Orica, which supplies explosive, TransAlta, which supplies electricity with renewable energies, and Sandvik and Caterpillar, which provide underground mining equipment and heavy machinery. Key factors, diversification of supply, the presence of multiple nickel suppliers globally reduce the dependence of single supplier. Advanced technology, suppliers of advanced technology for nickel mining and processing have a higher bargaining power. And the last one, access to raw materials, access to critical raw materials and components also influence the power of suppliers. Next, please. Bargaining power of buyers. The bargaining power of buyers is high, especially for large industrial consumers who can negotiate favorable price due to their significant purchase volume. And the key factors, large industrial consumers. Industries such as automotive and stainless steel production are large consumers of nickel and can influence price. Availability of alternative, the available of alternative and substitute can strengthen the bargaining power of buyers. And purchase volume, large purchase volume allow buyers to negotiate very better terms and conditions.
Hello everyone, good morning. I will present the price taker or price searcher. BHP as a price taker in the nickel market to influence the price is weak. This is due to several key points. The first one, global supply and demand dynamics. Nickel prices are dictated by the overall global supply and demand. In addition to BHP, the other major producers like Norilsk Nickel, Wallen and Glencore in Jinchuan Group. As a result, BHP can't single-handedly affect price movement. On the other hand, the fluctuation in global production, such as increases from Indonesia and the Philippines can lead to oversupply and price decreases. Conversely, high demand from industries like electronic vehicle can drive prices up. The second point is commodity market. Nickel is traded as a standardized commodity on exchange like the London Metal Exchange, where prices are established through the global trading activities. That means BHP must accept this market price regardless of its internal production efficiency or cost. The last one is market competition. The nickel market is highly competitive with so many large producers. No single company's production change can significantly influence global price, limiting BHP's ability to set prices. BHP as a price searcher in the nickel market is medium. That's because the first one, production differentiation. BHP produced high value, high quality nickel products used in electronic vehicle batteries, which are in high demand and can command high prices. Another one, by providing customers nickel product and service, satisfy special customers' needs. BHP increase customers' loyalty and has greater pricing power in negotiation. The next one is stable income. Long-term supply contracts with major customers, for example, EV manufacturers and stainless steel producers, often include high price standards, ensuring stable income for BHP. The last one, sustainability and brand reputation. BHP's strict environmental measure and sustainability practice and enhance its brand reputation, allowing its nickel products to fetch a premium in the market. The next page, please.
You have about 5 minutes.
Okay. The recommended strategy for BHP includes investing in more efficient and sustainable production technologies, keeping long-term contracts with large consume and diversifying markets to reduce dependence on specific regions due to market control, monopoly, or overstock. In the short run, BHP will temporarily suspend the Nickel West operation and the West Musgrave project in Western Australia from October 2024 as a global oversupply caused by pricing going down. The suspension included halting mining and processing operation at the Kwinana nickel refinery, Colgoria nickel smeltery, and the Metcalfe and the Leicester operations, as well as pausing the development of the West Musgrave project. However, BHP will continue to invest in exploration to extend the resource life of one Nikkei. In Nikkei West employ more than 3,000 people, and the operation may resume in 2027. The demand for high-quality nickel is expected to surge, and the demand for electronic vehicle increase. Over the next 30 years, the demand for primary nickel is projected nearly 4 times than now. That's all. Thank you. Next, please.
Well, and in this slide, we have the summary for quarters 5 fourths. The most important quarter fourth for the nickel market is the rivalry between existing competitor, because it's high, and bargaining power of buyer is high too. The next one is threat of substitute, because it's medium, and bargain power of supplier is medium too. And the last one is threat of new entrant, because we think that is a low force for the nickel market. Next, please, Francisco.
Como conclusions, recommended strategy, invest in more efficient and sustainability production technologies, secure long-term contracts, and defensive action. Maybe pause some project due to overstock, barriers to entry, high due to high capital cost and the need for advanced technology. Traits of substitute materials such as aluminum and plastic in certain applications. And finally, a growth opportunity, expansion in the EV battery market and the another emerging technology sector. For instance, in Nickel West, BHP is trailing electric vehicles underground, including a Toyota light vehicle and electric number change. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions or comments from others in the room? Well, let me say that I like the overall evaluation of the 5 Porter forces that you showed in your next to the last slide, and it was clear how you viewed the relative importance of threats to profitability, which the internal rivalry being the most threatening, as well as the bargaining power of buyers, and then the least important as a threat to profitability being the threat of entry. And that's very much the sense that set of conclusions is very much what the Porter analysis is aiming toward. It's focusing our thinking on what threatens our profitability in 5 categories, or as I've said several times, what keeps the senior executives awake at night. And when I read the news about nickel markets at the moment, the one thing that is in almost every news article is how significant expansion of production in Indonesia threatens producers that are not in Indonesia. And so anyway, I like that part of the analysis. The the part that I didn't quite understand was the price searching and price taking. And I'm not looking for a response here, but normally what I interpreted from your analysis, that there was a little bit of both price searching and price taking in the nickel market. But normally we think of price searching and price taking as quite different. Price taking is in a very competitive market where the price is determined by forces outside of my company, and I simply accept or take the price of the market. Whereas price searching is a situation in which I have some ability to control the price that I receive. But I liked the specific points that you made under both price searching and price taking. Anyway, I'm not looking for a response. I'm happy to communicate offline about that point.
Perfect.
At this point, to keep us on time and to make sure that iron ore and lithium have their allotted time, I'd like to thank the copper and nickel groups for their presentations, very informative. And let's take a second break and come back at 30 minutes past the hour. And next in line is the iron ore group. Okay.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
see everyone at 30 minutes
you.
past the hour.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Worldwide to be economically exploitable indicate reserve of approximately 150,000 million tons, expressed as grade iron ore concentrate 62% total fate. The deposits are mainly focused on the following 20 countries, constituting 95% of world reserves. As you can see, these mainly countries are Australia, Brazil, and China. The global iron mining industry consists of companies that mine iron-bearing ores that are primarily geomatite and magnetite. In addition to ore extraction, mining includes the development of mine sites and the processing of ore mine into a concentrate or pellet form. And then the iron ore and iron ore pellets are then sold as an input to blast furnace steel productions. So about supply and demand. Supply, the main iron producers include China, Australia, Brazil, India, and Russia. Supply can be influenced by factors such as production capacity, mineral reserve, extraction technology, and production costs. And demand, iron demand mainly comes from the steel industry, which use iron as a fundamental raw material. And in this case, China is the largest consumer of iron, followed by other countries with large construction and manufacturing industry. So according to this, the main iron production companies in the world are Vale, that is a Brazilian company, BHP, and Rio Tinto. So for the purpose of this presentation, we are gonna talk about BHP. So BHP is a large international company that produces different minerals worldwide. One of the most important assets is located in Western Australia. So Western Australia iron ore is known as WIO, and is an integrated system of 4 processing hubs and 5 mining hubs connected by more than 1,000 kilometers of rail infrastructure on port facilities in the Pilbara region of northern Western Australia. So Western Australian iron ore, WIO, is the lowest cost major iron ore producer globally and has one of the lower GHG emission production. So this benchmark seaborne iron ore operation as WIO achieved record production in fiscal year 2023 of 253 million tons through productivity gains in its supply chain, rail network, and car dampers. So about this company, if we see company perspective, the social value stands out in relation to decarbonization strategy, security, environment, communities, and indigenous partnership. In relation to porters, these 5 porters forces, we have first of all internal rivalry. So in this case, the threats are related to firms and measuring market concentration. So in this case, as mentioned before, the main iron producing firms are DAS, Rio Tinto, Vale, and BHP. According to that, the concentration ratio is 46%, which represents moderately concentrated market. So about degree of product differentiation, gematites is the type of iron ores deposits in WIO. So from those 5 locations, the results is a blend to create high-grade hematite, lump, and fines products. According to exit barriers, the threat is according to government policies, factors driving seaborne trade.
So regarding threat of entry, we consider this threat to be low because the barriers to entry in the iron market are high and make it difficult for new competitors to enter. Companies like BHP maintain their dominance thanks to economies of scale, advanced technology, access to the best deposit, and robust distribution networks. The threat of retaliation and regulatory complexities also deter new entrants. Specifically, we can say about the threat of retaliation that dominant companies such as BHP, Rio Tinto, and Vale have significant resources and can take strategic measures to protect their market position. On the other hand, BHP operates on such a scale that they can produce at lower cost due to the distribution of mixed cost over large volumes of production. Also, BHP offers high quality fine and coarse hematite products and can differentiate through service quality, delivery reliability, and commitment to sustainability and responsibly environment practice. Then we can say that the main iron deposits are already controlled by large companies. And to enter the iron market requires a substantial investment in equipment and infrastructure for exploitation and especially for transportation. In this case, BHP has a favorable location near logistical infrastructures such as railways, ports, and key markets, which enhances its competitiveness. Finally, with respect to government restriction, this is an important barrier. The process for complying with regulation and obtain permits are long and costly and often favor well-establishment companies with proven history of compliance and sustainability. The next, please. Regarding threat of substitution, closest substitutes in the iron market are steel scrap, aluminum, and plastic and composite. In summary, in the short terms, we think that the threat of substitution is low because current substitution such aluminum and composite cannot fully match the properties and cost of iron and steel in many industrial and construction applications. And the availability of scrap steel depend on the life cycle of products and the efficiency of a scrap collection system. However, in the long term, it could be tricky, considering that innovation in new materials and the trend toward sustainability could increase competition for the substitute materials. Next, Alexander. Alexander? Is Alexander or not?
No, seems like he's not. Okay, so bargaining power of input suppliers. We think this is a low threat because suppliers in the iron market, particularly those supplying essential equipment and raw materials, will consider power. The limited number of suppliers, we're thinking about, in this case, as Jordanelis said, BHP in Australia. Even though there are other main producers as Rio Tinto there, there are a few key suppliers of mining equipment and technology, which gives them some significant leverage. Specialized supplies. The industry depends on specialized machinery and technology, which are not easily substitutable. The cost of switching suppliers, high switching cost, and the need for reliable, high-quality inputs make it difficult for iron ore producers to change suppliers. Technological advances, suppliers that offer cutting-edge technology and innovate solutions can further increase their bargaining power. And iron ore companies that rely on advanced technology to improve efficiency and reduce costs are often at the mercy of the suppliers that controls these technologies. Regarding the bargaining power of buyers and sellers, as Jordanelis said at the beginning, defining the market, we have three major sellers: Rio Tinto, Bailey, and BHP. Being Rio Tinto and BHP located in Australia. And in terms of buyers, Asia is the main region buying iron ore, with China buying about 70% of the world seaborne iron ore. So it's a really huge buyer there. While Australia supplies about 60% of the world seaborne iron ore. Thus, we think that the bargaining power of buyer is very high. The China large-scale imports requirements provide a significant leverage to in terms of conditions and prices. Regarding the purchase volume, China is the major steel producing country with over 1,000 tons a year, followed by India, which is way below that, about 140 tons a year, giving China a high volume of demand, which is in line with what we described about the concentrations on the buyers. The availability of substitutes, Matthias said 2 slides ago, there are no perfect substitutes for iron ore in steel production yet. The main substitute may be the scrap steel, but since steel consumption exceeds the ferrous scrap generation, and as the world continues to require steel for key construction and infrastructure projects, it is expected demand for iron ore to continue in the future. And the ability to price discriminate for a standardized product like iron ore fines, switching costs for Chinese buyers are relatively low. The ability, this is thinking in the region because this is a regional market. So the validity of multiple suppliers provide options for switching its price of terms are unfavorable. Instead of forward or backward integration, Chinese steel producing costs result in very low chances to have competitive forward integrations in the context of steel producing. And regarding backward integrations, it doesn't seem like something to work since the other major producer, which is within Chinese steel, is also in the region, Australia. Next.
Okay. Well, to summarize, Porter's analysis force that we have discussed, in this case, we show the magnitude that we consider this could impact the profitability of this business. In first case, internal rivalry, we consider in short run it is low. Is the same in the long run. In the case of threat of entry, in a short run, it is low. In a long run, it is medium threat. Respect to threat of substitution, we consider that in the short run, it is low, and in the long run, it would be medium. In the case of the bargaining power of input supplier, we consider that in the short run, it is low. Is the same for the long run. About bargain power of buyer, we consider that is high in the short run. In the long run, it could be medium well. So this is according to the price, because we consider that is about a price taker according to the price volatile, considering that the price in this case depends on demand. The main consumer of this mineral is China in this case. Implication for strategy, this is a cost leadership. Now let's look at the conclusion and remarks that we consider for our analysis.
So in terms of threats, the high barriers to entry, as we said, such as high capital costs, economies of scale, access to deposits, and advanced technologies, make it difficult for new competitors to enter. The substitution, even it is low, innovation in materials and trends towards sustainability to increase the competition from substitute materials in steel scrap. About the weaknesses, dependence on the Chinese market, which makes companies vulnerable to fluctuations in the Chinese economies and policies and the growth of the economies of China. The exposure to price fluctuations as price takers, companies in the iron market have little control over prices, which are influenced by global supply and demand factors. The extreme economies of scale, access to high quality, and the most important for the company that we analyzed is the geographic location and transportation infrastructure. Opportunities, geographic and product diversification, innovation, and sustainability. And these, summing up the strategy should be in leadership in cost, operational efficiency, economies of scale, diversification, product portfolio, sustainability and innovation, and market intelligence. And that's our presentation of the iron ore.
Thank you very much. What questions and comments do we have? Let me begin by saying I like this slide and what it summarizes in the previous slide, which distinguishes between the short run and the long run. And the relative importance of the 5 Porter forces. I did have a question about number 4, the bargaining power of input suppliers. And so you've evaluated the bargaining power of input suppliers as low. Could we go back to the slide where you discuss that? There we go. So on the left-hand side, you conclude that suppliers wield considerable power. And then on the right-hand side, you explain that. Significant leverage in the hands of a limited number of suppliers, specialized supplies which are not easily substitutable. Those considerations, to me, suggest not low bargaining power of input suppliers, but either medium or high. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, it could be according a confusion of terms about suppliers, in this case for the mining operation, in this case for BHP. We consider it is a threat that a low impact in profitability, considering that the major operation that BHP have in Australia, considering has other assets like nickel, copper, potash, that we could be a complementary in case of require of equipments or something like that.
Okay, well, I understand that point. And maybe I'm being too much of an academic here, but the Porter 5 forces framework is designed to think about operating in a particular industry. And sometimes academics call that business strategy. So how to operate within iron ore in this case. There's a slightly different but related field called corporate strategy, which asks the question, what lines of business do we want to be in? And how do different lines of business complement one another, iron ore, potash, copper, and so on. And the point you've just raised is very relevant for the corporate strategy, but strictly in terms of the Porter framework, you've analyzed it, I think, correctly on this slide, looking at the suppliers to the iron ore business. But I think the conclusion then probably should be either medium or high rather than low. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it makes sense. Maybe it should be a medium. So
anyway,
but we think in the short run, we think that this is we say that is complicated to the low suppliers or the equipment low companies to provide, but the big company that BHP can to supply that with all investment in equipment, and because they are a big company, but maybe in the long term, the long run, we can careful with this trade, and you have to you have to do a strategy to with this supplier, with this provider, to the long term, this provide the equipment and to maintain the associated with these companies too. I don't know.
Okay, well, I think all of you have more detailed knowledge about this specific issue than I do. My comment is focused on the alignment between the detailed analysis on this slide and then your conclusion, the conclusion that it's low threat. And the words suppliers wield considerable power, that is not consistent with low threat to profitability. That's all I'm saying. Okay, but overall, I like the analysis. Okay, do we have any other questions or comments about iron ore? Well, if not, thank you very much. And let's turn our attention to lithium. And where's the lithium group? And let me invite you to talk to us.
Over here, Rob. I'm sharing my screen. Please let me know if you can see it now.
I see it now.
Okay, so just a second, please. Okay, so we are gonna discuss the lithium market. To start, we wanted to talk about the geographic extent of the lithium market, which we have defined as a world market. We are gonna go further into these topics while we continue with the presentation, but this is an overview of the main producers, which are currently Chile, Australia, Argentina, and China. And major markets where the product is sold is basically the Asian markets, China, South Korea, Japan, and also in a less extent, Europe. In this table, we can see what the production of lithium per country has been in 2022. This is the most recent data that we could gather. Australia is significantly the number one, but is continued by Chile. And before I forgot to mention, we have done this analysis from the point of view of SQM, which is one of the main producers of lithium in the world and the main one in Chile. And here we can see also the production per country, but divided on a pie graphic. But as you can see, Australia is almost half of the whole world production. Here, this is a really interesting graphic, we think, because it shows how lithium is traded from and to. The red dots here, I don't know if you can see my pointer, I don't think so, but the red dots here are the lithium produced from brines, and which is mainly in South America, and the white dots, it corresponds to lithium extracted as mineral. And the flow of commerce, as you can see, all goes mostly into China, and as I said before, in a lesser extent to Europe, but most of the concentration is here. So why have we defined that it is a world market? Because while it is true that there are specific regions that produce and where it's sold to, most of the prices are sold by transaction and are not really differentiated from where or to it is sold. So that's why we have defined that this is most a world market than a regional market. Where is lithium sold? It is sold in physical market between producers and customers, between defined contracts between these participants, in financial markets as the London Metal Exchange and other similar, in long-term contracts often that often cover several years. And in the spot market with transactions that are flexible but can be also volatile. Okay, so
Let me say something there, please. In the case of China, for example, China is the main consumer of lithium in the world. They traded by physical markets principle with long-term contracts. And for example, I thought that Shanghai Stock Exchange was the principal, but how China traded by physical market, the first one is London Metal Exchange for second. This was, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks. Okay, so continuing with the nature of the product. So lithium can be sold in different presentations. We have mentioned the three main ones here, which is lithium carbonate, hydroxide, and chloride. They have different uses. Carbonate is mainly used for batteries, specifically for electric vehicles and energy storage. Hydroxide is used in high nickel cathode batteries, which have higher energy density and longer life. And chloride is used in industrial applications, but from these three, the two first ones are the main ones that are currently moving the most of the market of lithium. So what differentiates these products is also their purity grade. So the lithium carbonate and hydroxide and the chloride can be sold in different grade levels or purity grade levels. So, and this is the main driver for the change in the price of one product compared to another, or for one producer to another. So we have defined that homogeneity is medium. It is not as high as for example, as iron ore, perhaps, that has a wide range of presentations, but it's not 100% homogeneous. I always forget the right word, but we have defined that is medium. It has some level of range of variety, and the main driver to change the price is grade. So it's not as similar, but it's not overly fluctuant between different producers as well. So we have defined that as a medium point. So how are the sales agreements and pricing mechanisms for these kinds of products behave in the market? So lithium is sold in approximately 39 countries to approximately 207 customers. So the production is fairly concentrated in a relatively small group of countries. And of these 39, we have already seen in the previous tables that the top three of them are the most significant part of these 39 countries. And the range of customers is really variable, but they are mostly presented in Asia, as we already said before. And most of the lithium is sold outside of Chile. So almost none of the production is for local purposes. It's all for exporting purposes. As I already said, 92% of the lithium sales made in Chile were made to Asia, and as I already mentioned as well, carbonate and hydroxide are the most representative of those sales. So this is a small chart that we prepared with the different technical grades that can be presented in these two main products. So we can see that there are different technicalities to them, and this is what drives, as I already mentioned, the price of what is sold. So key points that we would like to emphasize here is that the sales agreements and price schemes it can be to maintain stocks of these products in facilities around the world, because most of this is exported, and there are a lot of spot transactions. Some companies maintain stocks outside of the country near where their key customers are to be able to make more easy and more efficient transactions and more quickly to gain advantage of time. Sales of lithium and carbonate and hydroxide are mostly made in spot purchases orders or within the framework of supply contracts. And these contracts almost always have some minimum and maximum purchase committed, and prices are adjusted periodically according to the variation of price indexes established in the market. So, regarding the demand, first, to understand the demand, I think this is something that we have already mentioned in some of the previous courses, but most of the demand of lithium is the derivative of the electrical vehicle industry, because the main use that lithium has now is related to the rechargeable batteries for either electric or hybrid vehicles. So China is the main producer of these vehicles, and as such is the main consumer of lithium. And even if there are some fabrics of electric vehicles in Europe and America and United States, China even as such, China produces a lot of these batteries and then sells them to Europe or to America. So they are the main consumer right now from global consumption, with over 50% of the total, followed by South Korea, Japan, and Europe with lesser percentage. The total demand it has grown consistently over the last years and will continue to grow approximately until 2030. That is the latest projections that I don't know who can help me with this name because I already forgot what it was. The Council of Joaquín José, ¿qué significaba Cochilco?
Well, in English, it's the Chilean Copper Commission, I think.
Yeah, that.
Comisión Chilena del Cobre.
Comisión Chilena del Cobre, sorry. Sí.
Yeah, that one. Sorry, I forgot about it. And the projections have been consistent between the latest years. So important drivers that will help shape the demand in the future is the increasing adoption of electric vehicles. As we have discussed before, even if the demand for electrical vehicles were not as high as expected or didn't increase as rapidly as expected before, it is growing. So this continuance is what's going to help grow also the lithium industry. Consumer electronics has also grown their demand for lithium for smartphone, laptops, and other portable devices. And there is also several developments around energy storage that are not just for electric vehicles, that is rising in the markets and will also need lithium in the future. And this is also related to all the trends and the efforts to have more sustainable sources of energy and renewable energy solutions. Okay, so for the market definition, we have also, for the market concentration, we didn't calculate the HHI. It was a kind of hard for us to obtain data sufficient enough to do the calculations, but we did find a source of an index that was calculated in 2022, if I'm not mistaken, which with the HHI score over 2,500 which according to the scheme that was defined means that it is highly concentrated, that the production or the market is highly concentrated. The main producers right now is Albemarle, SQM, which is a company that we selected, Livent, and other more small companies, but these are the key players. All the rest of them are fairly smaller. So we think that this, even if it's not up to date, is still a real reflection of how the market is concentrated currently. And as we said here, lithium market is concentrated, and the five main actors own more than 80% of the whole world production. So that sums it up. Okay, so now we begin with the five forces analysis. And before we begin, we wanted to give a brief context of where SQM is located. This is the annual production of 2022, and SQM is located in the second place, really near to Albemarle, which is from the United States. And as we can see, the top 4 or 5 producers are the ones who concentrate most of the production, and the rest of them are not even a third of what the first ones produce. So to put it more graphically, maybe SQM has a big portion of the cake, to say it in a manner of speech. Okay, continuing with, and taking this into consideration, this is also a representation of how the countries how the reserves are distributed in the different countries. Chile, if we take into consideration only reserves, Chile has most of the current reserves globally, followed by Australia, Argentina, and China. But something important to keep in mind is that if we take into account resources, Bolivia and Argentina exceed importantly the Chilean resources. So this is what we think is the main threat for our company, because even as these resources are not yet being developed, this represents a higher threat for our profitability in the future, as the Bolivian and Argentinian industry continues to develop and continues to grow and continues investing in new projects. Some key points that we have annotated here is that there is an increase in production capacity that is being developed in other countries. What I mentioned before, Bolivia, Argentina, Canada, and China are all countries that are investing highly in future lithium operations. So SQM, that is currently in second place, could lower into positions in the medium or long term. The current global lithium market dynamics are characterized by various forms of association between producers and major consumers, which could affect market prices and trades. And this is almost more significantly in the Bolivian case, because they have signed and they have a lot of alliances with the Chinese government, which we know is the number one customer. So those alliances could benefit greatly the Bolivian industry and put at risk other industries in the region. Chilean production is 92% based on lithium carbonate. So mainly is related to the electric vehicle industry. So any change in that could also affect how the industry behaves in the future. Costs associated with transport are high due to the distance to the main customers of lithium, but it is not in a great disadvantage compared with other countries in the region. Argentina and Bolivia have really similar conditions in this ground. But Australia, which is the other important producer in the world, has better conditions of transport than we do. And the relationship with communities has been an impediment to develop lithium projects. Extraction processes have high impacts on the area's flora and fauna, because lithium is extracted from brines. So this has also been an important factor. So in summary, we believe that the rivalry amongst existing competitors is not a high threat now in the short run, but in the long run, especially with investments being made in other countries, it could signify a higher risk.
5 minutes.
Okay. The threat of entry, I'm gonna speak really fast right now. The threat of entry is really similar to other mining industries. There are a lot of government policies, environmental, social policies that you have to comply. Capital investments are significant, and the know-how is also reduced to a small number of companies. So we don't think that this is a high risk, nor in the short run or in the long run. In the case of the threats of substitutions, the main risk is emerging battery technologies, because there are other technologies that are being developed that are in the early stages of development that could replace lithium in the future, especially because they provide not only cheaper costs, but also higher lifespans of those batteries. So those signify a huge threat in the long run, but not in the short run. This also could be affected by reduction in lithium demand, competitive pressure, and investment shifts if capital start to flow to companies that are developing newer technologies. In the case of bargaining power of input suppliers, reagents is the number one supply, and it represents almost more than 50% of the total production cost. There is concentration in this case in Chile, and we don't think that we have a huge amount of power of bargaining with suppliers. So this is a medium threat in the short and the long run. But in the case of buyers, the Asian market lithium consumers are greatly diverse between China, South Korea, and Japan. It is really fairly distributed in different buyers with good grades or higher grades of product and technical grade of our final product. We think that even achieving that, the power of bargaining could be very low for our company. So what this means for our strategy, considering everything that we have mentioned so far, we believe that the best strategy, or the number one strategy that we will need to focus, is in cost reduction or cost protection. SQM is already leader in costs in the region. They have one of the best unit costs of processing and producing lithium in the region. So what we think is that they need to focus on maintaining and protecting those costs and keep that leadership, because it's what is going to protect their profitability in the future. Besides that, the only way to go forward and also protect from the risk of substitutes or competitors is develop demand and differentiation. And this could mean investing in research and development, making alliances with governments or companies that are doing researches of new uses for lithium or developing market for lithium. Also making alliances with the governments that are currently investing more in lithium and not stand one step behind those other countries that are already doing so. And diversification, diversify operations geographically, and the diversified asset base could also be an option, but we have put that at the last because we don't think it's going to be as relevant or it's going to have the same impact as the two first that we already mentioned. So to put this all together, this is our summary chart that we have prepared. We didn't have a medium point, so we only chose between low or high. And as I mentioned before, internal rivalry will be low in the short term, but high in the long term. The threat of entry will be low in both short and long term, because it's not going to be more flexible from one day to another, and projects don't arise from the ground from one day to another. The threat of substitution is currently low, but we think it will be high, and the bargaining power of suppliers is low, and the power of buyers will be high. So basically, this summarizes, we are going to maintain cost efficiency to compete on price and innovate and differentiate products to reduce direct competition. Okay, so I think that sums it up. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. Questions or comments?
Ruth?
Yes, Vladimir.
I have a few questions. It was said that none of the lithium remain in Chile. However, the lease contract between SQM and Albemarle obliga, ¿cómo se dice obliga? Force the companies to assign a preferential price quota to companies to add value. The lithium quotas were assigned to two Chinese companies. What is known about the status of those contracts?
I don't know if Joaquín, José, ¿ustedes tienen algo de información sobre eso?
No entendí muy bien la pregunta, la verdad.
Dice que el contrato... Sí, sí,
Te lo
¿sí
digo
la
en
puedes
español.
repetir en español? Sí.
Sí, mira, pasa que a las empresas que operan en el Salar de Atacama se les obliga a tener una cuota a valor preferente a empresas que agreguen valor en Chile. Y esas dos cuotas fueron asignadas a dos empresas chinas. Entonces, en la presentación se dijo que nada queda en Chile. Entonces, la pregunta va por el lado de que si esas cuotas no se están usando o eventualmente no tienen información.
No,
Porque yo tengo
de mi parte.
información que del orden del 90% de lo que nosotros vendemos se vende a China a través de contratos, pero no tenemos un convenio preferencial con ellos. Más que eso, la verdad, no manejo, Vladimir.
Okay. No, pero lo que pasa es que los contratos Corfo con los que opera SQM y Albemarle los obligan. Y hace poco salió en las noticias de que fueron asignadas esas cuotas. Posiblemente todavía no se instalan. Quizás solamente fueron asignadas. Solo era...
Gracias, Vladimir.
No,
No
está bueno el
manejamos esa
dato.
información.
Sí, pero está bueno el dato, gracias.
Other questions or comments? Well, I have a couple of comments or observations about this particular slide. And again, I like the summary, a summary table that presents or summarizes the overall analysis. If we look at threats to profitability and internal rivalry, in the short term low, that is, low is consistent with the HHI number of 2,700. So that's, in my view, consistent with the evidence. High in the long run suggests that the sector will become more competitive and have more suppliers in the long run. So again, I'm comfortable with that assessment. And I note that you use a scoring system that has low and high. One could have low, medium, and high. One could do 1 to 6 or 1 to 10, and any of those would be reasonable. So let me just make a general comment about scoring systems in a situation like this. I have a question about threat of entry, however. I agree that there are barriers to entry in the short term, but when I think about Bolivia, and you talked about Bolivia becoming a significant producer in the longer term, to me that suggests threat of entry maybe should be high in the longer term, because you have expanded production in Bolivia. The government there has made a priority of this, also potentially in Argentina, especially given the challenges in the Atacama today. Threat of substitution low in the short term, high in the long term. To me, that's consistent with the evidence that lithium-based battery technologies are going to dominate for the next 5 or 10 years, maybe longer, but beyond about 10 years from now, it's more unclear what's going to happen, and there's technological uncertainty. If we think about bargaining power of input suppliers, let me pause here for a moment. And when I read from the United States about lithium markets, one of the key stories are the priorities of the Boric administration about getting the state of Chile much more significantly involved in Chilean lithium production, having state involvement, requirements for further processing within Chile. I think discussion of what the royalty regimes will be. And I'm trying, in my mind, so here's government. And the question I raised, I think on Thursday when introducing the Porter framework is, how might we incorporate government when government is important in assessing the business environment? How do we incorporate government into a Porter framework? And I guess in this particular circumstance, I wonder whether input supplier wouldn't be the place to incorporate a discussion of government, as in this case, government, because it provides the permissions and authorities and defines the rules and regulations in which SQM operates. And perhaps this category would be the place to discuss that. And if so, is the threat to SQM's profitability really low, or might it be medium or high? It's a question. You are more, those of you who work either in the lithium sector or live and work in Chile probably have, or certainly have, a more informed view than I have. So that's really that's just a comment, and I do have any immediate reactions to that, although we don't need to have an extended discussion about what's going to happen within Chile. And I know it's complicated because even though is President or Prime Minister, I'm not sure what his title is, but President or Prime Minister Boric has made a high priority of greater state involvement. But yet, at least when he was elected, he did not have a majority in the Congress. And so there's disagreement within the Chilean government about ultimately what will happen. Anyway, I will be quiet. Do you have any immediate reactions on that topic?
I think it's a really good point of view, and we didn't consider that in the supplier. We did consider the participation of government and alliances with governments, but more related to the internal rivalry and not necessarily with suppliers. But when you say it, it absolutely makes sense. And I think that if we hadn't chose a binary system of scoring, we may have put the risk as medium and not necessarily as low, but we inclined more to the lower side because we thought it made more sense. But obviously what you have just mentioned makes 100% sense.
All right. Again, there are many things that we could say about each of these markets that we really don't have time for today. Are there any final questions or comments about lithium?
Yes, Francisco, por acá.
Yes, go ahead.
Here, yes. About the nickel and lithium, what behind the drastic and downturn systematic lower price in the stock in the both minerals? What do you think in general, please?
Is it for us or for Rod?
Asian discussions.
Well, if any of you have views on this, please, I have a couple of comments that I can make.
Yeah, one of the key drivers of the downfall of the price, from what we have read, is that there was a surge, a significant surge in previous years, because the demand was for electric vehicles was thought to be higher than it was actually it would actually became. And while the influx of the demand was steady and growing, it didn't grow as fast or as highly as it was projected in previous years. So that caused somewhat of an overcapacity at some point, and it caused a bit of a downfall in the price. But it's not, from what we have seen, it's not projected to like go to negative amounts or amounts that compromise future production. It's just going to stabilize, and it was just going to decrease to a point and then stabilize from further on. That's from what I have read.
That is consistent with what I have read and heard also, that in terms of our supply-demand models, and now think more about the long run rather than just the short run, that there was the expectation that demand would shift to the right or grow more quickly than it actually did. There was some new capacity that was brought online in anticipation of this growth in demand by now, and it didn't happen. There was a slowdown in the growth in EV sales worldwide, which then had the effect of slowing the increase in the demand for lithium-based batteries. And in fact, in a related point, which with respect to EVs, there's an article in either yesterday or today's Financial Times about platinum, and that there's been a surge in investment in platinum because a number of automobile companies have reduced, they're planning not to increase full battery electric vehicle production as quickly as they had planned previously, and instead are planning to increase capacity for hybrid vehicles. Hybrid vehicles will continue to need the catalytic converters that need platinum, and that the demand for platinum will not decrease as quickly or as much as was thought. Anyway, back to lithium and nickel. I think there was, in addition to this, I would call it fundamental change in, well, the growth in demand is occurring more slowly than was expected in terms of capacity additions. In addition, I think there was some speculation in both markets by investors, not actual producers and consumers, that there were profits to be made in terms of speculative transactions that added even more to the growth in prices, but that was not sustainable. And I'll talk more about that when we talk more about prices later today. Well, let me cut off the discussion of our specific markets and lithium right now. Thank all the groups. I hope this has been an interesting and informative morning where we've been introduced to or reviewed some facts and figures and information about each of these markets. let me just try to summarize a little bit in my mind what we've heard. First of all, we looked at 6 different markets, all of which are mineral-related commodity markets, but they're quite a bit different from one another. And so let's start with gold, where we began the day. Gold it's a precious metal. And what does that mean? It means that it has high value per unit of weight or volume. Moreover, its demand is partially influenced by the demand for jewelry and industrial uses, but a significant part of the demand is for investment purposes, and that's a little different. That distinguishes the precious metals and gold, silver, platinum, and palladium from the other 5 that we've looked at. On the supply side, gold, in addition to having mine production, in addition to having recycled metal be important, there are the occasional sales from central banks. Think of that as inventory behavior that also can be important in explaining changes in prices. In terms of the Porter analysis, it is a very high valued good. Transportation does not in a commercial way limit the geographic extent of markets. So this is probably the best example of a single world market, the transportability in the David Humphreys diagram, and a market in which I think there is a homogeneous product, the refined gold, even that serves as a reference point for pricing, even if gold is bought and sold in different product forms. So that's how I think of gold. We talked then about molybdenum. What are some of the key characteristics of molybdenum? Well, it's produced primarily as a byproduct of something else, which means that the availability of molybdenum is linked and is determined not just by developments in molybdenum markets, but also by what happens in copper markets. And so there's a mutual interdependence between molybdenum and copper that is one of the reasons that I selected molybdenum as one of the commodities that we should look at. If we think about the Porter framework, I think it is a world market. Transportation does not really significantly constrain. Transportation costs don't significantly constrain the market or where a specific producer can sell its product. Copper is an example of a major metal. Here is a metal that has a wide range. Let me back up. Molybdenum, somewhat specialized uses. It's a relatively small market compared to iron and steel and copper. So its demand is linked to specific uses in steel alloys and as a lubricant separate from the steel alloys. So its demand is importantly influenced by developments in the steel industry and developments in the lubricants market, as opposed to the overall state of the economy. Copper, on the other hand, is a major metal, major in the sense that its worldwide production is several tens of millions of tons per year. As such, demand for copper is importantly influenced by the state of the overall macroeconomy. It has uses throughout the economy. Certainly, many of these uses are linked to the electrical properties of copper, but still we have the state of the macroeconomy is an important determinant of the state of copper markets. What about nickel? Nickel, like molybdenum, its market situation is linked probably more to what's happening in steel and increasingly what's happening in batteries than to the economy as a whole. Certainly the state of the macroeconomy influences nickel markets, but more important is to think about what's happening with nickel-containing steels and increasingly nickel-containing batteries and what's happening to battery chemistries and the use of nickel. Iron ore is another major metal, or it's an ore that is an input to a major metal, steel. So it also, like copper, has demand which is importantly influenced by the state of the macroeconomy. Steel's used in a wide variety of applications in almost every sector of the economy. Then we have lithium. Lithium is, I think, the smallest of the markets of the 6 that we looked at, both in terms of tons and in terms of value, in terms of dollars. And moreover, it's almost more of a specialty chemicals business than it is a standardized commodity market. And what we just heard is that we have carbonate, hydroxide, and chlorides that serve somewhat different customers. And even within carbonates and hydroxide, we have different grades. We have battery grade, and then we have standard grade, which are, again, it's a differentiation that serve different customers. As a small market, it is, I think, less transparent. It's probably the least transparent of all of these markets because of its small size. Now, it's becoming much more transparent now than it was 10 or 15 years ago, to be sure. Finally, just think about these in terms of the Porter forces. We have a range of, gold being the most global or most conforms to a single global market. Iron ore probably is at the other extreme. While it is certainly traded and bought and sold internationally, transportation costs are an important consideration for anybody that is a producer of iron ore. It constrains the markets into which it can be sold. In terms of homogeneity of products, gold is probably at one extreme, homogeneous product. Copper, refined copper is similar to that. Iron ore is probably at the other extreme in terms of somewhat differentiated products. Lithium, I would say, is at the other extreme in terms of some degree of differentiated products. I mean, nickel's interesting because historically it's been nickel metal that is fed into the steel industry, whereas in the battery market, it's nickel sulfate principally. And so there's beginning to be a little differentiation within the nickel market. In terms of market concentration, the HHIs, the extremes here probably are gold, which, if we had complete information, I think probably has the lowest HHI, although I'm not sure about that. Copper is probably reasonably low. I think lithium, as we heard, has the highest, bordering on the moderate to highly concentrated market, which implies probably a different type of internal rivalry within the market. Okay. I can see from the small number of faces that are looking at me that I need to that I've probably said enough. The eyes are beginning to glaze over. So let me again thank everyone for this analysis. And we will, let's now turn to the rest of the course. And we have 15 minutes left until our scheduled break. So rather than taking a break now, let me begin the discussion of the remainder of the slides that I have prepared as a way of finishing up the formal part of the course. Okay, so now you get to see my screen again. And with a little bit of luck, you are looking at a slide that says 8 total supply. Is that correct?
I don't see it, at least.
Yeah, it's a black screen now.
Not yet.
You don't see it. Huh, okay, let me try it again. How about now?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Well, you'll recall that when we ended yesterday, we'd been talking about supply, and we talked about a joint production, byproducts and co-products. And then we also talked about secondary supply or supply from scrap. Let me make the obvious, what I think is the obvious point now, or hope is the obvious point now, that it's the combination of all of these which reflect or equal or can be thought of as total supply. So we have primary supply, and as I use the word, that's from the mine. And then we have secondary supply, which represents metal recovered from scrap. And for both primary supply and secondary supply, we have different categories or different subcategories. So in terms of mine supply or mining and metallurgy supply, we have individual products. Those are mines that produce one product. But we have other mines and metallurgical processing facilities that produce multiple products. And we often can think about main products, the principal product, or what in molybdenum is called the primary product, which drives and largely determines the nature of the size and the nature of the mine and the metallurgical facilities. Byproducts, things like rhenium and tellurium in the copper production stream, which are really very minor in terms of their contributions to total revenues and profitability. And then we have co-products, where we have more than one product that both of which are important in terms of defining supply. And so at some copper mines, both copper and molybdenum are, I would call them co-products, as we heard in a comment this morning. And then secondary supply, secondary as I have defined the term, we have metal recovered from old scrap, which is influenced largely, and the availability in any particular year depends importantly on the lifetime of products and how quickly has demand grown over the lifetime of the products that now are becoming available. So for lead old scrap or lead in old scrap, the amount of lead available today is based on the quantity of lead incorporated into batteries 4 or 5 years ago. So a very short lifetime. Whereas for something like copper, the amount of copper available today from old scrap is determined largely, is based on copper demand 20 years ago, approximately. I mean, I don't know that that's an exact number, but it's much longer lifetimes, and that influences very much the quantities available. Okay, now we have 10 minutes left until the break. Let me quickly go through an exercise, supply-demand exercise, just as an example of how we could use simple supply-demand graphs to organize our thinking about how markets evolve and change. And my example is for cobalt. And so I say cobalt is produced almost exclusively as a byproduct at some nickel mines and at some copper mines. So that's the supply side. And in this simplified version of the cobalt market, we have two types of byproduct supply: cobalt produced at copper mines and cobalt produced at copper mines. On the demand side, again, a simplified view of the world, we assume that cobalt is used as an alloying element in aerospace steels, and also as a component of certain lithium-based rechargeable batteries. And so the exercise is, or the question, or the assignment, if we were doing this as an assignment, would be draw short-run supply curves for both sources of cobalt, a total supply curve, a total demand curve, and then indicate the equilibrium price and quantity. And in the next couple of slides, I trace out how we might draw these curves. And then after we draw the initial curves, then in the bottom part of this problem, the question asks, how would supply and demand curves change and price and quantity change if certain things happen? But let's first talk about the initial situation. So talk about short-run supply for cobalt. And here's one way of drawing the components of supply. So I have S, meaning supply, Ni, meaning nickel. So, and the axes are cost per unit on the vertical axis and an output rate, a supply rate on the horizontal axis, quantity per time period. And so we have the supply of cobalt from nickel mines, indicated by one supply curve, and the supply of cobalt from copper mines, the other curve. And the way I've drawn the diagrams, cobalt has lower costs when produced from copper mines. That's what this positioning of the curve, the cobalt from copper curve is lower than the cobalt from nickel curve. So byproduct cobalt from copper in this diagram is cheaper than from nickel. Is that really true? I have no idea, but I imagine one source is generally cheaper than the other. Then we have a vertical portion of each supply curve. What does that vertical portion reflect? It represents the maximum quantity of cobalt available in the short run from nickel mines and from copper mines. So there is a scale of operation of nickel mining and copper mining, and then only a certain amount of cobalt in the nickel ore and in the copper ore that defines these quantities. Now, how do we determine a total supply of cobalt in this simplified world? Well, the logic is the following. At each price, ask the question, what quantity of cobalt is available? And so if we start at the bottom at zero price, well, zero cobalt is available. When does cobalt begin to become available? Only at this price, when it becomes now commercially viable for copper mines to supply cobalt. And between this price and this price, copper mines will be the only source of cobalt because price is not high enough to encourage nickel mines to recover and sell cobalt. But at this price and at higher prices, cobalt will come both from nickel mines and from copper mines. And so we'll have a total supply curve that looks something like this, where the total supply curve is the summation of the cobalt from nickel supply curve and the cobalt from copper supply curve. And then this quantity will represent what? The sum of this quantity and that quantity. Did that make sense? So now we have total supply. Now let's think about demand. And I said we have two sources of demand, batteries and steel. And it would not be surprising if steel mills have a different demand curve than battery manufacturing facilities. And the way I've drawn these curves, and so the steeply sloped demand curve is the demand by battery manufacturers. This demand curve is the demand for cobalt by steel mills. Which demander will be more sensitive to a change in price? Well, steepness of slope gives us some indication. The quantity demanded how does the quantity demanded by batteries change with a change in price? Really not a lot relative to demand by steel mills. This flatter demand curve from steel mills expresses a greater sensitivity to prices than battery manufacturers. And maybe that reflects the fact that in certain types of steel, there are other elements that can be substituted for cobalt to yield steel alloys of similar quality. But in the battery space, if you are manufacturing lithium-ion batteries with nickel, manganese, cobalt cathodes, there's less flexibility because you need a certain amount of cobalt, at least in the short run. Now, what will the total demand curve look like in this case? Again, use the same logic. At each price, ask how much will be demanded. So at this relatively low price, this quantity will be demanded by battery manufacturers. This quantity will be demanded by steel mills, and the sum of this quantity and that quantity will give us a point out here somewhere on the total demand curve. As we increase the price, what's the next key price to think about? Well, it will be this price, because at prices higher than this price, what quantity will steel mills demand? 0. So at prices higher than this point, the total demand curve will simply be the demand curve for batteries or by battery manufacturers. And so the total demand curve will look like that, given the assumptions in my question. Now, what determines the price and quantity, the price of cobalt and the quantity of cobalt produced and consumed? Well, it's the intersection of total demand and total supply, which will be something like this. So we have the total supply curve, we have the total demand curve that determines the total price and the total quantity. And in turn, that price, P1 in this case, will determine how much cobalt is supplied from nickel mines and how much is supplied from copper mines. Okay? We've now reached the top of the hour and the time for our scheduled break. When we come back, I will quickly go through the second part of this problem just to complete that exercise. Okay? So we will begin again in 1 hour.
Okay. Thank you, Rod.
Okay.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you, Bob.
See you.
See you.
Thank you. See you.